The Void, Series 1, Episode 3. Trust in the Enemy, by Richard Marcus Powell. Chapter 10. For the interrogation, Skenn found himself in a rather comfortable conference room. It was located near the core of the ship, and from what he could gather, it was part of a suite that was used by everyone. He had expected to be locked in a secure location for the interrogation, but this was more pleasant. Someone entered carrying a cup of coffee and placed it in front of him. He thanked them and took a sip. It was surprisingly flavoursome for a drink served on a military vessel. He'd had a lot better, but still good. Had it been a Teel vessel, it would have almost certainly been a generic brown liquid with only a vague passing resemblance to coffee. Still, despite this convivial approach, he still had a retinue of guards stationed outside of the room, and one inside, sat at the other end of the table, watching him. The door opened and in walked Captain Schafer, Commander Voight, and Dr. Takuma, and took up seats on the opposite side of the table. As he looked at the doctor, he instinctively checked the wrap that she had placed on his head to protect the areas affected by the surgery. It was just there to protect the vulnerable areas, but it had been designed so that he could rest his head while sleeping without causing any discomfort. It looked a little ridiculous, sure, but it wasn't designed to be fashionable.
Kane, can you start recording the session? Full AV.
Certainly, Captain.
Interrogation of Namor Skenn, Teel Corporation defector, Lysera system, Schafer announced. Please timestamp, Kane.
How are you feeling, Mr. Skenn? Voight asked. Are you sufficiently rested?
Yes, thank you, Commander, Skenn answered. I must say, this is all much more pleasant than I'd expected.
This may be interrogation, but there's no need to be uncivilized about it, Voight replied. You've been willing to cooperate every step of the way, and have not given us any cause for a more secure environment. So here we are.
First of all, thank you for agreeing to do this, and not dragging the process out, Schafer conceded.
I want to get it done as much as you do, Captain.
Before we get on to the questioning, can we establish your identity, please?
I am Namor Skenn, agent of the Teel Corporation, and I have been operating as an assassin and covert agent for the corporation for over 6 metric months.
What's that in Triskel years, Kane?
Over 20 Triskel years, Captain.
That's a long time to be operating in such a dangerous profession, Schafer commented.
It is. I've operated mostly in human territory, but I have operated among xenocultures as well.
Metric date of birth?
Truthfully, I don't know. I know I am 1.1 to 1.2 metric years old, but I can't be more specific than that.
Home planet?
Saren, Skenn revealed. I know that for sure.
Any indexed individual identification number?
If I had one, it's long forgotten, Skenn shrugged. I'm so used to fake identities that my own seems a little vague.
Okay then. So during this time, how many deaths would you say you've been responsible for?
A few hundred. I don't recall offhand, but my ship will have logs that can corroborate names and times. I think the main core survived, so that should be possible to retrieve.
You don't know the number?
Commander, after a while they start to blur together, Skenn protested. You only tend to remember the ones that stand out. Someone who stares you in the eyes and dies defiantly, or someone who tries to run away from you, only to be killed by traffic. You remember them. You don't remember the people you shot from a distance.
Does life mean so little to you?
It's a cruel universe, Commander, and I've seen parts of it you can't imagine, Skenn retorted with subdued anger. There's no limit to the cruelty humanity can inflict upon their brethren. I know I am no angel, but there's a lot worse than me out there.
So, after so much time in the service of the Teel Corporation, what made you decide to defect to the Republic? Schafer interjected.
I've mentioned this to the doctor there, but I will go through it again for the record, Skenn explained. As you are aware, I have quite a few implants in my head. The doctor's scan confirmed that.
I will link the medical records to this interrogation for context,
Akari stated. Well, not so long ago, I was hunting down a fugitive in Jujinkai space. He'd put quite some space between himself and Teel space, but not so far that I couldn't find him. However, when I caught up with him, he managed to surprise me and clubbed me unconscious, Skenn detailed. This had an unexpected effect. The blow damaged one of my implants.
And what effect did this have?
The implant itself prevented me from forming any thoughts that might act contrary to the edicts of the Teel Corporation. This meant I could not hold any thoughts of disobedience or defiance, or any thoughts of active rebellion, Skenn summarized. Once this was damaged, I found myself able to hold onto those thoughts for a little bit longer, and, over time, I was able to exert some defiance. Not overt, of course, as that would have been detected and resulted in me becoming the next target on the list.
This implant was controlling your mind?
In a way, yes. It was more a matter of having a clear path than a hazy fog. It steered you down a certain path, rather than state outright what you should be doing. Skenn tried to explain the exact nature of the implant, but found it difficult. But once I was able to start thinking a bit more clearly, I decided I wanted to think for myself. I couldn't get the implant removed immediately. Again, that would have been detected. I had to spend a long time training myself to work against it, to reduce the hold it had over me. It gave me time to prepare as well. I was able to move money around freely and plan my course of action. No one thought to check the accounts, as no one thought I was capable of subterfuge against the Corp.
You eventually had that implant removed then?
Yes. As soon as I did that, it set off alerts. I was a fugitive from that moment on. If I was recaptured, it would have been re-implanted. But, to be honest, termination was far more likely. Teel isn't one for second chances, and I just proved the technology fallible, Skenn answered. By that point, I had already decided to defect to the Republic.
Why the Republic? Why us? Schafer probed. Why not one of the other corporations?
Firstly, anyone else would have got what they needed from me and then had me killed. The Republic is the one human territory that I stood a chance in, Skenn reasoned. Secondly, if there's one thing being enslaved to a neural chip does to you, it makes you appreciate freedom. The Republic claimed to champion this, and, whilst I'm not naive enough to take this at face value, it did factor into my considerations.
You respect freedom and liberty?
Even killers dream of freedom, Captain, Skenn dryly observed. We even have higher ideals.
But something went wrong, as you were under assault when we found you.
After I communicated with the Senate, my presence was detected, and they all converged on my presence. Just bad luck, really.
The doctor then had to remove 2 more implants before you could attend this session. They were close to failure.
More bad luck, I'm afraid. It might have been a cascade caused by the removal of other implants. I've had a few removed lately, and not all of the procedures have been done by surgeons as skilled as your doctor.
That was Dr. Exotic Ner, actually. So, we have the reason for your defection, but we only have your word that you've had an implant that effectively controlled your mind.
Well, I couldn't exactly bring it with me, but your doctor will confirm the implants I have and had.
I can confirm it definitely, Mr. Skenn, but everything in his head is consistent with what he claims. There's definitely evidence for it, but not conclusive proof, Akari modified. But the implants we took out are definitely behavioral modifiers, so we can conclusively prove that some mental manipulation has been going on.
Schafer rumbled. He didn't want to give this assassin any excuse for his behavior, and this sounded dangerously close to it.
And you want to join the Republic because you want to be free of being controlled, Voight concluded, succinctly.
Correct.
Are you willing to share all the information you have?
Also correct.
And what information do you have?
Providing the data is still on my ship's core, I can give you the data on all the missions I've been on, who I killed, the reason why, and who gave the order. There's a few Republicans in the list, and I know a few you wrote off as accidents, but that's just cursory data. Skenn enticed. What you want to know are the names of spies and other operatives, inner workings of Teel intelligence, and so on. It won't be everything, as I am just one agent, and what agency would let a single agent know too much. Still, what I do know is valuable enough. Like, a good start is with Senator Nestor. He's a Teel spy.
No, he can't be, Schafer protested. He's been part of the Senate since the beginning.
He is most definitely a spy for the Teel Corporation. I know this because I was the one who turned him. War hero and champion of justice he may be, but...
You're accusing Senator Nestor of...
Accuse? No. I have proof on my ship's computer core, Skenn added. Blackmail was the first stage, but he gets paid for his services as well. You don't have to believe me. Just do what they did in the ancient democracies and follow the money.
I can't believe Nestor of all people. Schafer shook his head. To Schafer, Nestor had been a paragon of the Republic, a shining light that inspired others. Now this turned out to be a lie.
One thing I've always found, the more pure and wholesome the image, the more corrupt and depraved the reality, Skenn posited. If you can't see the flaws, that just means they've done a good job hiding them.
Cynical, aren't you?
Voight observed. If you're not cynical, you're not paying attention.
Captain.
They'll have to investigate. Any charges leveled do have to be investigated, even if there's no evidence. It's the only way to prove or disapprove the allegations.
What about the damage to his reputation? An accusation like this will destroy his career, even if proven false.
It'll have to be done quietly. If it turns out to be true, then we'll have to go public.
It'll damage the democratic institution.
But if it's covered up and he's allowed to fall on his sword, so to speak, it'll do far more damage should it come out. And it will. These things have a habit of getting out, Schafer evaluated. We have to adhere to the principles of the Republic. Damage to the institution is inevitable, but as long as we adhere to the core principles, it will not collapse.
It's either way,
Voight concluded.
The only thing we can do is sell it on the principle of maintaining security.
Schafer hung his head. This was not good for their still relatively new democracy. Still, better to know of the threat than not. He is probably not the only one, Skenn warned. I wasn't the only agent tasked with this.
Do you know of any others?
There are others at a lower level that I know of. There's a few in the military, mostly those in useful positions like intelligence, a couple in the civilian sector as well.
You'll give us all the names?
All the ones I know of, yes, Skenn offered. But like I say, this is probably just a fraction.
Do you have anything that can help us identify others?
I can analyze the patterns of suspected individuals and point out behaviors that might indicate they have been turned. But again, it's not definitive.
You say you've killed a number of Republic personnel,
Voight added. Yes, I think the most high profile of those would be Senator Lamenta.
That wasn't an accident then?
Teel Intelligence identified her as a potential target, but she turned out to be more principled than the analysts thought. I had to think creatively, and I felt getting trampled by her own livestock seemed a good way of dealing with it, though she was dead before I managed to achieve that. I remember that one because, well, she was one of those that went fighting me all the way. Quite admired that.
You seem proud of all this,
Voight noted. I know I must seem abhorrent to you, Commander, but I have been manipulated and controlled my whole life. I feel what they want me to feel. Am I proud of what I've done? Yes, but I don't even know if that's me or them, Skenn explained, keeping calm. But there was an underlying anger in his voice. Only now am I starting to feel my natural emotions.
The implant I removed last cycle was one that controls behavior. Certain emotions were being influenced, if not outright controlled. Emotions like fear, shame, guilt were heavily suppressed, and others like rage and happiness were being amplified, depending on the situations, Akari defended. It's like the implants were used to control certain personality disorders, but turned for more sinister purposes. Mr. Skenn has not been in control of his emotions since it was attached to his brain.
This doesn't change what you've done. You still have to take responsibility for your actions.
No, it doesn't change anything. I know that. The past cannot be undone, but I want to be my own man, not to be some compliant drone.
Do you think you can redeem yourself by working for the Republic?
I don't know if I can change, but I do want the chance to be able to make my own decisions, my own mistakes, Skenn revealed. All I want to be is myself, whatever form that takes.
And what if you can't?
At least it'll be my decision, not Teel's, Skenn resolved. Either way, you still get my knowledge and skills, and I get my freedom. I am willing to commit myself to the Republic to achieve this.
But do you believe in what the Republic stands for?
Belief is such a nebulous term, Captain. I'm still figuring these things out myself. What I want, how I feel, what I believe. The one thing I am sure of is that I want to be free. If this is what the Republic stands for, then yes.
Schafer mused over this. Could such a man believe in such ideals? He still loathed the man for what he was, and this was an individual steeped in deception and subterfuge. Did he deserve a second chance? I think we should leave it there for the time being, Schafer decided. We need to consult the Senate on the best course of action going forward. Mr. Skenn, I will require you to assist Lieutenant Commander Nadiro in retrieving the data from the ship. Major Varma will also be there to keep an eye on you. Schafer, Voight, and Akari stood and left the room, leaving Skenn to await the guards. What do you make of his story? Schafer asked.
We have to establish its veracity first. I believe he is being truthful, at least from his perspective, Akari judged. It all stands up from a medical standpoint. He seems genuine, Voight added. He's not trying to shy away from the more unpleasant aspects. I think we can do a deal with him. At the same time, we're going to have to watch him very closely. We're doing a deal here, not establishing trust.
I have to admit that I am reticent, but I am realistic enough to appreciate the security value. If what he says about Senator Nestor is true, and I hate the thought that it might be, then we will have plugged a major breach in our security.
So what will you recommend to the Senate?
Deal. But we're going to have to do something to keep an eye on him.